Hey, you're just here to clean and reload. Don't you dare touch that scope, a training sergeant barked when he saw the young woman examining an M110 rifle on the weapons table. She said nothing, just tightened the bolt on the stock, then rolled up her sleeve. At that moment, a general walked through the corridor, glanced at her arm, and suddenly stopped dead, his eyes fixed on an old patch. Kraken unit insignia. One nod, the entire room fell silent. Meet Ellie Shore, 28 years old, with neatly tied brown hair and determined eyes. She's a logistics officer, recently transferred to Fort Ainslie Base Camp. She had previously applied for a re-enlistment but was rejected, so now she's assigned to weapon support and cleaning duties, not participating in training. The new recruits and sergeants look down on her because they think she just labels guns and wipes tables. Ellie doesn't react, just works very meticulously, often spending extra hours fixing small errors on weapons. Once, she removed a rifle with the scope that was off by their 5 degrees and adjusted it, but got scolded by a lieutenant for being curious in the wrong places. A male soldier even said she seems to know guns, but that's just Google knowledge. Ellie remained silent, her hands gliding over each part of the rifle, careful as if caressing a loved one. She looked at the scratches, the worn spots on the gun, as if they were her own scars. To her, each rifle wasn't just a tool, but a life, a comrade. And she could never accept a comrade being neglected. The morning sun filtered through the armory windows as Ellie methodically cleaned each weapon. Her movements were precise, almost ritualistic. While others rushed through their duties, she took time to inspect every bolt, every trigger mechanism, every sight alignment. "Sure," barked Sergeant Martinez, watching her work. "You've been on that same rifle for 20 minutes. We've got 30 more to process." "Yes, Sergeant," Ellie replied, quietly but didn't speed up. She had found a hairline crack in the firing pin that others had missed, a crack that could mean the difference between life and death in the field. The other soldiers snickered. "Look at the perfectionist," whispered Private Johnson, acting like she's some kind of weapons expert. "Probably learned everything from YouTube tutorials," added Corporal Davis with a laugh. Ellie heard every word but continued her work. Her fingers traced the weapon's surface with an intimacy that spoke of experience far beyond what her current role suggested. Each scratch told a story. Each wear mark held a memory. During lunch break, she sat alone in the corner of the mess hall. The younger soldiers would occasionally glance her way, some with curiosity, others with barely concealed disdain. They saw a woman doing grunt work, someone who couldn't cut it in combat roles. What they didn't see were the subtle signs, the way she instinctively checked exits when entering a room, how her eyes automatically assessed potential threats, the slight hesitation before she sat with her back to any space. These weren't the habits of someone who had spent her career behind a desk. That afternoon, during weapons inspection, Ellie noticed something that made her blood run cold. One of the sniper rifles had been improperly reassembled after cleaning. The bolt wasn't fully seated, creating a dangerous malfunction waiting to happen. She approached the training supervisor carefully. "Sir, there's an issue with rifle number 7. "What kind of issue?" he asked dismissively. "The bolt assembly." "Sure. Your job is to clean, not diagnose. Leave the technical work to people who actually know what they're doing." Ellie stepped back, but her eyes never left the rifle. She knew what a malfunctioning weapon could do. She had seen good soldiers die because someone was too proud to listen to a warning. As the day ended and the armory emptied, Ellie remained quietly, carefully. She fixed the rifle because some things were more important than pride or protocol. Some things were about bringing people home alive. The next morning brought the quarterly sniper team evaluation. Ellie was assigned to inspect and prepare weapons for the marksmanship training exercise. The armory buzzed with activity as elite shooters from various units gathered, their polished boots clicking against concrete floors. She moved quietly between the weapon stations, methodically checking each rifle. Her practice hands found issues others had missed. A loose scope mount here, improper zeroing there, a trigger mechanism that needed adjustment. Each correction was made with surgical precision. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" The voice cut through the room like a blade. Staff Sergeant Reynolds, the sniper team leader, stood behind her, his face flushed with anger. Ellie had been adjusting the primary competition rifle, a pristine M24 that would be used in the final demonstration. "I found a problem with the scope alignment, Sergeant. It's off by... Did I ask for your opinion?" Reynolds stepped closer, his voice rising. The entire room began to take notice. "Your support staff. Your job is to wipe down weapons, not play expert." Ellie straightened, still holding the rifle. "Sergeant, this rifle will miss its target by 6 inches at 400 meters. Someone could... Could what? Die?" Reynolds laughed harshly. "Listen to yourself. You think you know better than our certified armorers? Than our master shooters?" The room had gone quiet now. 23 soldiers, including 2 captains and a major, all watching the public dressing down of the logistics officer who had dared to touch their precious equipment. Reynolds snatched the rifle from her hands. "This rifle was zeroed yesterday by Sergeant Williams, who has 15 years of sniper experience. But sure, let's trust the cleaning lady instead." A few soldiers snickered. Ellie felt the familiar burn of humiliation. But something deeper stirred. A memory of another time, another place, when dismissing someone's expertise had cost lives. "Remove your name tag," Reynolds commanded. Ellie's hands moved slowly to her chest, unfastening the black plastic rectangle that read Ellie Shore. "I'm recommending you for transfer to general maintenance. Clearly, weapons handling is beyond your capabilities." Reynolds held up her name tag like a trophy. "Maybe stick to mopping floors from now on." The humiliation was complete. In front of the base's most elite soldiers, she had been stripped of even her basic credentials. Some looked away uncomfortably. Others whispered among themselves. But no one spoke up. Ellie's voice was barely above a whisper. "I understand, Sergeant." As she turned to leave, muscle memory kicked in. The armory was warm, and she instinctively rolled up her sleeves, a habit from countless hours of detailed work in hot conditions. The patch on her right shoulder came into view. It was old, faded from years in washing, but unmistakable. A silver octopus with 8 tentacles, each wrapped around a curved dagger. Below it, barely visible, were the words that made seasoned soldiers' blood run cold. Cracken. At that exact moment, the armory door opened. General Marcus Abrams, Fort Ainsley's commanding officer, entered for his unscheduled inspection. He was known for surprise visits, keeping his troops sharp and ready. His intention was to observe the sniper evaluation and perhaps address any discipline issues he'd been hearing about. But his eyes immediately found the patch. Time seemed to slow. The general's weathered face went through a series of expressions: recognition, disbelief, then something approaching reverence. He had seen that patch before, in classified briefings and after-action reports that were buried deeper than most military secrets. "Attention," someone called, but General Abrams raised his hand for silence. His voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. "Kraken." Every head in the room turned. The general approached Ellie slowly, his eyes never leaving the patch. When he was close enough, he spoke quietly, but in the dead silence, everyone heard. "You were part of Black Harpoon, weren't you?" Ellie met his eyes and gave the slightest nod. The general stepped back, and his voice rang out with absolute authority. Everyone in this room, attention. 23 soldiers snapped to attention. The general continued, his voice carrying the weight of knowledge that others in the room couldn't fathom. This soldier has served with distinction in operations that you don't have clearance to know about. Her expertise with weapon systems has saved lives in situations that would break most of you. He turned to Reynolds, whose face had gone pale. Sergeant, return her name tag immediately and apologize. The room remained frozen. The woman, who had just been publicly humiliated for playing expert, was revealed to be something far beyond what any of them had imagined. Reynolds' hands shaking slightly, extended the name tag. I apologize, ma'am. I didn't know. Ellie took her name tag back, her voice steady. There was no way you could have known, Sergeant, but the damage and the revelation was complete. From cold dismissal to a general's reverence, a legendary name echoing in silence. This wasn't just a unit patch. This was a reminder that the greatest heroes sometimes hide in plain sight, and true worth isn't measured by rank, but carved in scars and selfless service that no one knows about. If you believe there are souls who have walked through hell and returned to serve silently, and that the highest respect comes not from position but from extraordinary actions, comment, Black Harpoon, if you believe in the power of silence and heroes who need no recognition, because some people don't need to speak to make an entire army bow. They just need a pass that no one else has the strength to understand. The armory remained silent as General Abrams gestured for everyone except essential personnel to leave. Within minutes, only he, Ellie, and 2 senior officers remained. The general's aide closed the door and posted guard outside. Sergeant Shore, General Abrams began, using her proper rank for the first time, I need to ask you some questions. Ellie nodded, her posture straight but relaxed, the bearing of someone who had faced far more intense interrogations. The Kraken unit, he continued, officially never existed. The files are buried so deep that most generals don't even know the name. But I was part of the oversight committee in 2016. I signed off on some of your operations. He paused, studying her face. Black Harpoon was supposed to be a routine hostage extraction in Syria. Intelligence said 3 American contractors were being held by a splinter group. Simple in-and-out mission. Ellie's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, the only sign that the memory still affected her. General Abrams continued, but it wasn't routine, was it? Your entire 6-person team was compromised before you even reached the target. Someone had sold you out. The weight of those words hung in the air. Cracken unit had been the military's most classified special operations team, so secret that their existence was denied even within classified circles. They handled the missions that were too sensitive for SEALs, too dangerous for Delta Force, too politically explosive for anyone else. They specialized in impossible extractions, operating in complete darkness, both literally and figuratively. The unit selection process was so brutal that most applicants didn't survive training. Of those who did, the average operational lifespan was 14 months. Ellie Shore had served for 4 years. She was also the only woman ever accepted into Kraken unit, not because of quotas or politics, but because she scored higher on the psychological evaluations and marksmanship tests than any candidate in the program's history. The intelligence was wrong, Ellie spoke for the first time, her voice steady but distant. There weren't 3 hostages. There were 4. And they weren't contractors. They were CIA operatives who had been compromised while gathering intelligence on chemical weapons shipments. General Abrams nodded grimly. The mission was political suicide. If it went wrong, complete deniability was essential. We inserted at 200 hours, Ellie continued, her voice taking on the mechanical tone of an after-action report. Team Alpha 6 operators, including myself as the designated marksman. The compound was supposed to be lightly defended. She paused, and for a moment, the professional mask slipped. It was a trap. They were waiting for us. The ambush had been perfectly orchestrated. As soon as Crack Team reached the compound, they found themselves caught in a crossfire from positions that shouldn't have been occupied. Someone had fed their entire operational plan to the enemy. We lost Kowalski and Martinez in the first 30 seconds. Ellie's voice remained steady, but her hands had unconsciously clenched into fists. Thompson took shrapnel to the chest, but kept fighting. Rodriguez was hit in the leg, but maintained our escape route. What happened next would be studied in classified tactical training programs for years to come, though Ellie's name would never appear in those case studies. The team leader, Captain Morrison, he was hit bad, gut shot, losing blood fast. The hostages were in a basement room, but between us and them were at least 15 hostiles in fortified positions. Ellie had found herself in command of a decimated team with injured teammates, hostile forces surrounding them, and 4 CIA operatives whose location was known but whose extraction seemed impossible. I set up overwatch on the 2nd floor, she continued. From there, I could cover the basement approach and our exit route, but the angles were terrible, and I was running low on ammunition. What she didn't mention was the impossible shots she had made that night, shooting through walls, using sound and muzzle flash to locate targets, hitting enemies in complete darkness using only the brief illumination from their own gunfire, eliminating threats while her teammates moved to extract the hostages. The extraction should have taken 30 minutes, General Abrams said quietly. You were in there for 3 hours. Morrison died 40 minutes in. Ellie's voice cracked slightly. Rodriguez was unconscious from blood loss. Thompson was running on pure adrenaline and medical stimulants. It was just me covering the extraction of 4 hostages and 2 wounded teammates. She had held that position for 2 hours and 20 minutes, firing calculated shots that had to count because ammunition was finite. Every round had to disable or kill, because missing meant her team and the CIA operatives would die. The official after-action report said you eliminated 27 hostile combatants, General Abrams said, but intelligence estimates put the actual number higher. Ellie didn't respond to that. Some numbers were too painful to confirm. You carried Thompson for the last half mile to the extraction point, he continued, and you were the only team member conscious when the helicopter arrived. The extraction had been successful, but at a devastating cost. Of the 6 Kraken operators who had entered the compound, only 3 came out, and 2 of those would never serve in combat again. The unit was disbanded after Black Harpoon, General Abrams said. Too many good operators lost, too many security breaches. The whole program was classified beyond black and buried. Ellie nodded. We were given new identities, medical care, and the choice to continue serving in conventional roles or take full discharge with benefits. All records were sealed or destroyed. And you chose to stay in the service, he observed. Most Kraken survivors took discharge and disappeared into civilian life. The military was all I knew, Ellie said simply. And weapons. Weapons were something I understood, something I could still do to help people come home alive. General Abrams was quiet for a long moment. Then your psychological profile noted severe survivor's guilt and a compulsive need to ensure equipment reliability. The psychiatrist recommended you be kept away from combat roles. They were right, Ellie said without bitterness. I couldn't handle losing another team, but I could make sure their weapons didn't fail them. It all made sense now. Her obsessive attention to detail, her refusal to let even minor mechanical issues slide, her quiet acceptance of a diminished role. She wasn't just maintaining weapons. She was trying to save lives, the only way she felt she could. The woman, who had been dismissed as an overzealous cleaning lady, was actually a warrior, trying to heal by protecting others in the only way she knew how. Word spread through Fort Ainslie faster than classified information should travel, but some stories demand to be told. Within hours, every soldier on base knew that the quiet woman in logistics was a Kraken survivor. The training room where the incident occurred was officially renamed Kraken Bay by base command, a subtle but permanent acknowledgement of what had transpired there. A small brass plaque was installed by the entrance, bearing only the octopus and dagger symbol with the inscription, "In honor of those who serve in silence." Staff Sergeant Reynolds requested immediate transfer to another unit. His request was denied. Instead, he was reassigned to logistics support, under Ellie's direct supervision. A move that everyone understood was both punishment and education. He would learn, firsthand, what real expertise looked like. General Abrams made another decision that surprised the base. He formally invited Ellie to serve as honorary advisor to the Advanced Marksmanship Program. She declined any official title or rank increase, but agreed to provide weapon system consultation when needed. The changes were subtle but profound. Soldiers who had once ignored or dismissed her now sought her advice on equipment issues. The sniper team, in particular, began bringing their weapons to her for final inspection before critical exercises. 3 weeks after the incident, a small ceremony was held in the base chapel. No media was present, no official records were kept. Only 9 people attended: General Abrams, 2 colonels, the base chaplain, and 5 soldiers who had served in classified operations and understood the weight of what had happened. The ceremony lasted exactly 11 minutes. No speeches were given, no awards presented. Instead, each attendee wore a small silver pin, a new version of the Cracken patch, redesigned for those who honored the unit's memory. At the ceremony's end, General Abrams approached Ellie with a folded flag and a shadow box containing the original Kraken unit patch, her patch, the one she had worn through Black Harpoon and beyond. "We forgot," he said simply, "but you never stopped being part of us." Ellie accepted the shadow box with hands that didn't shake, though her eyes reflected years of carrying secrets alone. "I never wanted to be remembered, sir. I just wanted to do my job." "That's exactly why you should be remembered," he replied. The most significant change came in how the base approached weapons maintenance. New protocols were established, requiring all critical equipment to undergo multi-level inspection. Ellie's methods became standard procedure, and her obsessive attention to detail was recognized as the life-saving practice it had always been. A month later, during a major training exercise, one of the new inspection protocols caught a hairline fracture in a rifle bolt that would have caused catastrophic failure. The soldier using that weapon later approached Ellie personally to thank her. "You probably saved my life," he said. "That's the point," she replied quietly. But perhaps the most meaningful change was visible in Ellie herself. The weight she had carried for years, the guilt of surviving when others didn't, the burden of unrecognized sacrifice seemed lighter. Not gone, but shared now among people who understood. She still worked with the same meticulous care, still spent extra hours ensuring every weapon was perfect, but now she wasn't doing it alone. Other soldiers would stay late to help, to learn, to honor what she represented. The base had learned that heroism doesn't always wear stripes or carry medals. Sometimes it wears scars and works in silence, protecting others in ways they'll never know. "I don't want to be remembered. I just want to keep cleaning the things I know are dangerous if left unchecked, even if it's just a small scratch on a rifle barrel. I've heard people say she's just a gun cleaner. They're not wrong. I clean guns because I once watched an improperly maintained weapon take away my entire team." You see, people think precision is about perfection. It's not. It's about coming home alive. Every bolt I tighten, every scope I align, every trigger mechanism I adjust, these aren't just mechanical tasks, they're promises. Promises to mothers who sent their sons to serve. Promises to wives waiting for their husbands to return. Promises to children who draw pictures of daddy in uniform. I learned something in that compound in Syria, something they don't teach in any military manual. The difference between living and dying often comes down to the smallest details. A scope that's off by half a degree, a firing pin with a hairline crack, a bolt that isn't properly seated. The enemy doesn't care about your rank or your reputation. Bullets don't respect authority. When everything goes wrong, and it will go wrong, the only things that matter are your training, your teammates, and whether your equipment works when you need it most. I used to be the person behind the rifle. Now I'm the person who makes sure the rifle works for whoever is behind it. Both roles require the same thing, understanding that other people's lives depend on what you do. After Black Harpoon, the military psychiatrist said I had survivor's guilt and obsessive-compulsive tendencies related to equipment reliability. They were right. I am obsessed. I am compulsive about details, because I've seen what happens when people aren't. I've held teammates as they died from equipment failures that could have been prevented. I've had to tell families that their loved one didn't come home because someone was in a hurry or lazy or just didn't think that one small thing mattered. Every small thing matters. So when you see someone working quietly, paying attention to details that others ignore, don't assume they don't know what they're doing. Don't assume their caution is inexperience or their thoroughness is wasted time. Sometimes the person who seems to be doing the least important job is actually doing the most important thing, making sure everyone else can do their job and come home safe. I don't need recognition. I don't need rank or awards or ceremonies. I just need to know that when someone pulls that trigger, when someone's life depends on that weapon working perfectly, it will. Because silence has its own kind of honor. And sometimes the greatest service is the kind that no one notices until it saves their life. That's enough for me. It has to be. Subscribe Ironheart Stories if you believe not all legends wear stripes. Some just wear scars in silence.